Hey everybody, it's Dr. Simon. I want to go over the week 2 assignment, the DSM-5 and the ICD, to make sure that we're all on the same page. One of the things that I want you guys to be mindful of throughout the duration of this course is that as school counselors, we don't diagnose. However, we do work with clients, with students who may have a diagnosis, who may need to be referred because they may need to have an assessment to possibly be diagnosed, or they may be living with family members who are diagnosed. So, us having a better understanding of what these diagnoses entail, what the characteristics are, and how they are. The criteria that's used is important for school counselors. For those of you who are looking to pursue your LPC, and the DSM is one of those books that you may become familiar with when you're looking at diagnosing, because insurance companies do require that you use the DSM-5, ICD-10 as a means of providing the diagnosis so that they can ensure that the client meets the coverage needed for the billing for insurance. So that's kind of what is going to be discussed this week in the podcasts and the information that you're listening to this week. So this week, you have the resources are provided here for you. So if you still have not got your book or purchased the access code, you don't need your textbook for this assignment. Everything that you need in order to complete the assignment for this week is already here for you in Engage. You do need your DSM-5. So that book you do need, because you are going to have to input the DSM-5 and the ICD-10 codes, and those you're going to find within the DSM. But like I said in the announcements, you can get whatever version. You can borrow a book, you can rent a book, you can buy a used book, as long as it's the DSM-5 and not the DSM-4 earlier editions. As long as the DSM-5, then that's fine. So what you're going to do, you have the podcast here for the mental health billing. You have the DSM and ICD website. There's a video here that kind of goes over what that looks like, along with the ACA, DSM-5, and ICD resources page. So there's a lot of resources that are here available for you so that you can complete the assignment for this week. So you can either use a PowerPoint or you can create a Prezi in order to address the topics for the assignment for this week. If you're going to do a Prezi, when you go to upload your assignment, then you'll give me the link of the Prezi within the comment section, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to need to discuss the purpose of counselors being able to navigate and effectively use the DSM-5 and ICD-10. When you're looking at this, you need to, so most of you have already been through practicum, so you have a pretty good idea of what it looks like when you're working with clients. So how is this book, and how is understanding the criteria that's in there, how is that useful to counselors? What is the relationship between the DSM-5 and the ICD-10? I also want you to give me a summary of the podcast for the mental health billing. Now, in this summary, you do not have to go into detail about the different software and things that she uses. That's not the purpose. When you're listening to the podcast, I want you to think of it as if you were a practitioner. What is something that you'd be able to gather from this, and how could you apply this if you were either A, working in a private practice, or B, if you were in a school and you were working with a family who didn't really understand, they don't understand how working with a private practice person is going to go. So pay attention to how you can incorporate that. So not the different types of software, because she is going to tell you about different coding software that you can use. That isn't what I want you to gather from, but it's how can you work with and understand mental health billing and its purpose, and the DSM-5, and how all of those things are related. You are also going to have to use the DSM-5 in order to get the DSM-5 and ICD code for generalized anxiety disorder. The DSM-5 code and the ICD-10. So I've been teaching this section for a couple of semesters now, and this is probably one of the biggest areas where students make mistakes. You need to give me both the DSM-5, and the ICD-10 code for generalized anxiety disorders. There are two separate codes that are related to generalized anxiety disorder. You have the DSM-5 code and the ICD-10. So make sure that you distinguish both of those and where and how you found it. So that's also a requirement. We'll look at the rubric because it says that on the rubric as well. Also, you need to give me a reflection on how this information contributes to your growth as a counselor. If you're going to be a school counselor, how does this information, because it is valuable to both school counselors and LPCs. So if you're going to be a school counselor, how is this valuable to you as a school counselor? If you're going to be an LPC, how is this valuable to you as an LPC? If you are looking at both, how is this valuable to you? How can you incorporate that? So this is a reflection on you as an individual and how this information has helped you, and it is going to help you grow as a counselor and in your counselor identity. You need to have 8 to 10 slides, not including the title page, and you're going to submit this to me. I want to look at the rubric. And so the rubric is in the getting started. It didn't seem like there was a tab on there. Getting started. Sorry for scrolling. Hope it's not hurting your eyes. Assignments and rubrics. Then if I go over here, the DSM ICD-10 rubric. So when you're looking at it, to get full credit, you have to make sure that in your PowerPoint or in your Prezi, all ideas flow logically, the theme is identifiable, it's reasonable, and it's sound. And so when you're looking at that, remember, this should be something that it's professional when you create it. So in a PowerPoint or in a Prezi, for it to be professional, pay attention to the font that you're using, the colors that you're using to make sure that it's something that we can read easily, that it isn't filled with tons of words on one slide. Make sure that you clearly articulate the purpose of the podcast and provide insight summary, demonstrate a clear understanding of the context of the podcast, and make an outside connection. So the context, not the small little details on the different software that she's going to use, but what is the purpose of it? Make sure that you include the correct DSM-5 code and the correct ICD-10 code, and you provide evidence of how and where you were able to locate this code. That code needs to come from the DSM-5 book. Do not use Mayo Clinic. That is, if you're using Mayo Clinic and you're trying to submit that information to an insurance company, that's not where they want that to come from. They want that information to come from the DSM-5 because that is the official source when you are looking at codes for the DSM-5 code and the ICD-10 code. Include a thorough reflection of the knowledge gained, assumptions and challenges that you may have developed, and how the writer developed academically and personally as a result of the assignment. So once again, in that reflection, make sure that you're including how you as an individual, how this information is useful to you. Make sure the document is user-friendly and you use a variety of images to create an organized product. Once again, this is something that should be very professionally done. You guys are at the end of your time here with us, so you've had time to help develop that and know what something looks like professionally because many of you at the end of this semester and some at the end of next semester, you'll be professionals. And so you'll be able to hold seminars and meetings. And so what is that going to look like when you're presenting to parents or clients or administrators? So make this a very professional product. Also make sure that you check your grammar, diction, correct uses of punctuation, and citation. So here's the rubric. So make sure that you use the rubric and the instructions that are in there. Like I said, what I've seen the most over the course of time where students make mistakes is they forget to give me both the DSM-5 and the ICD-10 code. And then on the summary of the podcast, they're so focused on those small little individual pieces, and they don't make the connection as to how this podcast is something that they could that can help them understand what the process looks like as far as being a counselor and billing and insurance and what all that applies. So please make that connection. If you have questions, please let me know. Check the announcements and check the course wall as we go through. I look forward to seeing your presentations, and you guys have a great week.